So after I got my bilateral mastectomy done, I was in the healing process for those 2 weeks. I had drains on both sides. I got a pretty bad infection that took over the whole left side. Everything was red and inflamed, and my plastic surgeon rushed me into emergency surgery. He removed my expander on the left side. So I was flat on the left side for about 4 weeks, just to give my body a little bit of time to heal before going back into surgery. 4 weeks later, I went in and got my expander and mesh replaced on the left side. I'm feeling good other than just like a lot of pressure on the left side, a little bit of pain from the expanding, but hopefully that'll die off in the next couple days, and then we'll come back next week and do another round of expansion and kind of let you know what's going on. Hi guys, I wanted to talk to you guys today about just a little bit more about the infection and about the double mastectomy that we didn't really get to talk about in depth while I was going through it. And I want to start with the results after the surgery and kind of what the pathology reports came back with as far as the tumor and the shrinkage with that. Immediately after surgery, my surgeon came in and kind of explained the lymph nodes that she removed and told me that the tumor initially started at 10 to 12 centimeters. It was kind of somewhere in that range. Once they opened me up and kind of looked at the tumor, it had shrunk down to, I think, around 1 centimeter. So my body had a really good response to the chemotherapy, which was best case scenario for me and what everybody was hoping for. So that was really good news. And she also went on to explain that initially I had 1 lymph node in the left axilla under the armpit area that showed cancer. When she went in to take that out, it was still just the 1 lymph node that was infected. But just to be cautious and to be safe and do her due diligence and everything she could, she did end up taking out an additional 7 lymph nodes, so it totaled 8 altogether. She explained that the way my cancer grew, it grew like a web, so it kind of like attached to different areas. So she explained it to me as removing like tiers of lymph nodes. So she started with the 1 and then went upwards as it grew out farther and farther. They say you have typically like 12 to 16 lymph nodes in each area, so removing half of the lymph nodes was a pretty good turnout considering other people have all of them removed. So I was really happy to keep a good amount of lymph nodes in my left underarm area. Just to go a little bit more in depth, there are higher risks with lymphedema, the more amount of lymph nodes that you take out, which is swelling in the arm because the body cannot process. It's kind of the body's way of eliminating. So the lymphatic system is kind of our drainage system. So when we don't have any lymph nodes, it gets blocked up, and that's what causes lymphedema. And the body can't drain and the fluids can't move through. So it gave me better chances of not having lymphedema as a reaction. So those were the results from the double mastectomy and the pathology reports that came back from surgery. So that was really good news. 2 weeks after that, as you saw in the previous video, I got a major infection. We didn't know what it was in the beginning, but the side effects that I experienced were throwing up. I had a fever that was over 101 for like 2 days. We were trying different medications. We tried Bactrim and we tried cephalexin to kind of help with any kind of bacterial infection, and it did not respond. I couldn't even keep it down long enough before I would throw it back up. I ended up telling my doctors, what was going on, and they were like, okay, if it gets any worse, if we can't contain the fever, then you need to come in. So that night I went to have a shower, and Dylan was helping me shower because I had my drains and everything attached to me, and I threw up in the shower. He had to hold a bowl for me as I threw up, and I was so weak. We called my doctor again, and he's like, okay, I think we need to go into emergency surgery. So he's like, send me a picture of what your drain looks like. At that point in time, this was probably like an hour or two later, my whole left breast was red. I was swollen and red all down my left side. It was to the point where I couldn't even walk or like stand up straight because the pain was so bad. Also, another indication was when I was stripping my drains, like you saw in the last video, the fluid coming out was really cloudy and like milky. And we'll put some pictures up here so you guys can see, but it was really milky, and he's like, yeah, that's pus. So there's a major infection. You need to come in right now. So we went to the emergency room. They rushed me back, opened me up. It just all happened so fast. I woke up from surgery, and I was hooked up to everything. You guys saw everything in the last video. They put me on clindamycin as well as a few other antibiotics just to kind of be proactive and attack anything we possibly could. So they gave me a really strong antibiotic. I was on that for 5 days while we were waiting for the culture to come back. Finally, the culture came back and it showed a staph infection. So he said staph infections are somewhat common when you open a large area up, which I had my whole breast as well as like under my arm. When you have big pockets of tissue that's been removed or been messed with, it can cause bacteria to grow, and that's exactly what happened. I also had a drain coming out of my body through an incision that, you know, allowed bacteria to get in there too. It's everywhere. It's microscopic. It's almost impossible to keep that at bay. But since I had such a low immunity coming out of chemotherapy, my body, I think, just couldn't handle what was growing and couldn't fight it off. So I think that's how it was able to get so bad. He said, it's a good thing that you came in when you did, because had it have gone another day or two, it could have turned septic and gone into my bloodstream, and we might not have been able to get rid of it, and it could have been fatal. So it was really good timing that we were able to get me in and handled, and I'm just really thankful that I have really good doctors who are on top of things and respond really well. So we got me on an antibiotic at home. I was on clindamycin for 12 days post emergency surgery, and that ended up clearing everything up. Luckily, he did say that the staph infection was really responsive to the antibiotics, which is really good because there's staph infections that are responsive and resistant to antibiotics. So was really thankful for that. One thing from the surgery though that I will mention, since we went in the first time with the double mastectomy, it already created scar tissue from just opening up that tissue and removing it. So going in a second time, the body did even more work to try and recover and heal that tissue and the skin and everything else that had been messed with and inflamed from the infection. So as I came out of surgery, I did not have an expander in. He removed the mesh, he removed the expander from my initial bilateral mastectomy surgery. So I came out of surgery with a flat chest on the left side. I had my expander on my right side. It was flat on my left side. You could see all the wrinkled skin since there was nothing stretching that skin out anymore. That was definitely hard for me to see because it was the first time that I had seen myself without any kind of breast form on my body, and it was like that for 4 weeks. And because it was like that after the infection surgery, my skin tightened up and it kind of shrunk that skin and just was in recovery mode for 4 weeks, that when we went back in to put my expander back in, the expander and mesh back in 4 weeks later, we noticed that the breast wasn't stretching as much as it did after my initial surgery. And so my left breast was all kind of pulled to the left, including like the nipple, the incision, and everything. So also was sitting a little bit higher and was pulling tighter because of all the inflammation from everything that my body had just gone through. One major thing that has been extremely important to me since my breast cancer diagnosis is being aware and mindful of what products that I'm using, from the food that I eat to the water that I'm drinking, skincare, body wash, deodorants, lotions, everything, just being mindful of the ingredients that are in them. A company that I found, Native, offers products that are aluminum free and paraben free, from toothpaste to body wash to deodorant. I felt especially good using their deodorant, as I knew I was placing it in a very sensitive area near my lymphatic system that connected directly to my breast, and it felt really good knowing that I was using a product that was paraben free. After all, we are more than what we just eat, we are what we absorb. So I really loved Native. One of my favorite scents that I have of theirs is the coconut and vanilla. This one smells so good. And you just push it up like a little push pop and just apply it to the area. Another favorite scent is citrus and herbal musk. It smells so good. It's like super fresh. I also have a charcoal scent as well, and to be honest, they all smell really, really good. Native's plastic-free deodorant uses the same formula as their original. They just offer more sustainable packaging now, so that's really nice, and it's environmental friendly. So their sustainable packaging is made from paperboard, and Native is a proud sponsor of 1% for the Planet, committing 1% of plastic-free deodorant sales to environmental nonprofits. Super cool. So one thing that's super nice about Native deodorant is that it's not sticky and it dries quickly, so you don't have to wait before you put on clothes. Their deodorants are 24-hour odor protection, great all-day wear even after any kind of exercise. 3 plastic-free deodorants would be $39, but if you use my link and code CHATWIN, you can get them for $26, so that's over 33% off. You can also use my code CHATWIN to get 20% off of toothpaste and body wash. So check them out. Love that they are vegan and cruelty-free. They've been a perfect addition to my lifestyle and the changes that I've made, and I'd love for you to check them out too. There are other lifestyle changes that I've made as well that I feel have made a huge impact in my health, including a water machine that we got as soon as I was diagnosed with chemo. So I'll go more in depth with that stuff in another video, just kind of overall health changes that we've made. But I also wanted to talk to you guys about the expansion process as well as the preparation for radiation. After my initial double mastectomy, I came out with expanders that sized out to be 175 cc on both sides. We hadn't done any expansions prior to my infection happening because it onset at like 2 weeks. So it did delay us about 10 weeks for radiation, but I went back in for that infection surgery, and I had the expander out for the 4 weeks. So once I got the expander back in, I had to wait another 2 weeks before we could start expanding. When he put the second expander in with the mesh, my body, because of the inflammation and because of the irritation that the infection caused, he wasn't able to match the right side at the 175 cc. I think that side was 125 cc. So we started with that. My first expansion was after putting the second expander back in, the new expander and the mesh after an infection. I went in and got my expander and mesh replaced on the left side, and I just barely got the drain out today. Yay. And they expanded just my left side because this side was already expanded. We're kind of playing the catch-up game since we had that infection that kind of set us back. We'll be expanding me for the next like 3 to 5 weeks before going into radiation. We come back each week and get re-expanded each week to kind of stretch the skin for implants that I'll be doing in about 6 to 9 months. I hadn't really recorded past the surgery and like the healing stages for this other surgery that we did after the infection, because I've just honestly been in like a lot of pain. It's a bit similar of a process to the first surgery with both breasts that we removed. I'm feeling good other than just like a lot of pressure on the left side, a little bit of pain from the expanding, but hopefully that'll die off in the next couple days, and then we'll come back next week and do another round of expansion and kind of let you know what's going on. So I just got done with my second expansion appointment, another follow-up after surgery. Each expander has like a little metal piece that's on the top part, so they're mostly metal, and then like the middle part is an inflatable kind of silicone-ish, I guess you could say, material. And so the top part, there is like a metal piece right here that they use like almost like a metal detector to like find where that's at, and then they take the needle and insert it into my chest, and they have like a tube, almost like a syringe of liquid that they push, and it just like fills the expander out. So that's kind of the process of that. Right now they are like very hardened, not comfortable at all, and they do like push against my sternum and like the middle part of my chest. So far everything is feeling pretty good. I am not in as much pain as I was after the surgery. I am still doing my daily stretches, but I just wanted to give a little update here right after my appointment before I forgot any information. The first time we expanded, we did 25 cc. I waited another week and I went back in and she did 125 cc to try and match the right side. And that was when I noticed that my breast was super, super tight. It hurt. It felt like a huge water balloon was expanding in my chest. Not to mention the rigid outsides of the expander. They were kind of pushing against all places on my chest. So that second time was pretty painful just because it felt like extremely swollen, and it was still tender and sensitive from the infection and recovering from that. We did need to kind of play a little bit of the catch-up game because they have like a time frame after surgery of when they want you to get into radiation, because they don't like to delay anything in the process because they just don't want any opportunity for anything to regrow. So with it pushing us back 10 weeks, that's why after the initial expansion of 25 cc, we did 125 to kind of catch up with the other breast. Another thing with the expansion process is that we have to overexpand the left side in order to accommodate the radiation shrinkage. My radiation oncologist said about 98 to 99% of people after radiation have tissue shrinkage, where the skin actually shrinks up. It's just a reaction that it has from radiation. So we did have to play catch-up game, and that's why we did 125 cc right off the bat rather than in increments. So we overexpanded the left side a pretty significant amount. I don't know the exact total of cc's that we did. I think it was close to 375. My right breast is a little bit smaller since we didn't need to expand to accommodate for the radiation. I tried to expand to the size that I was before because that is what I feel fits most naturally on my body. And full disclosure, before I had breast cancer, before I had my breasts removed, I was about a full C cup. So it's hard to determine what cc's are to what I had before, but based off of just size, the doctor said, you'll just come in weekly until it's the size you want, until you feel comfortable, and then we'll just overexpand the left side to prepare for radiation. So that was kind of that process. Since it does just show the full breast when I'm getting it expanded, it's hard to kind of film and show what that process is for you guys. But that was kind of the whole process. It did make it pretty uncomfortable while I was going through and stretching that skin out, especially the left side after the infection. Another thing that we didn't really talk about in the double mastectomy video was the numbness that I had from the surgery. So initially, before I started surgery, they gave me like an entire nerve block, I think front and back, before they went in, just because it's such a big surgery. They said because my breast cancer was located so close to my nipple and so close to nerves that there would probably be a lack of sensation and numbness that could potentially be long-term. Sometimes your nerves regenerate, and so that feeling can come back. I will tell you, my breasts are numb. Like, I can touch my nipples on both sides and I don't feel anything unless I'm like looking at me touching it, because then my brain can like register that there is sensation. But if it's just being touched and I can't look at it, then it's completely numb. All around is numb on both sides. And then my arm on my left side, since a lot of nerves were damaged when they took out the lymph nodes, the underarm area right here is pretty numb, and then all back here is numb. The top part is, I still have feeling here, but I do like massage it daily and just try and like regenerate those nerves a little bit for whatever will come back. If they do. My breast, they said, will probably always be numb, especially the nipples, just because they had to cut a lot of nerve endings when removing the tissue and the tumor. So that's been really interesting. Anytime Dylan goes to grab my arm, I'm like, oh, it kind of has a different sensation. Alongside the numbness and the surgery, I also had to do stretches where I constantly, like, I think like 3 or 4 times a day, I raise my arms up and I pull my arms back and stretch it out. This arm can go further than this arm. We're still working on it. And then I open and close my arms, I stretch and lift them up, and this just kind of helps the scar tissue not build up as much and just kind of helps the scar reformation. So it's reforming in a different kind of way, different kind of matter. So I still do have some sort of mobility there. It's definitely not like it was before, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I'm still working, and I'm hopeful that once I have my implants in and I'm not so restricted with the metal expanders, that I'll have a good amount of movement and able to do, you know, some of the things that I used to do, like play volleyball and really stretch with yoga and stuff. So I do go to yoga. I have tried to go as often as I can and do like gentle yoga classes where it's mainly just focusing on stretching and rehabilitation. It's definitely been a part of my schedule and my routine to kind of help that tissue stretch, and that's constantly a work in progress. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update of everything that goes into the surgery aspect. I mean, I know you guys saw me actually go through that and like the recovery of like expanding my lungs and doing breathing treatments and just waking up from surgery, but there's so much more that goes into it that I think people don't really realize. And aside from like the drains and stuff, we didn't even film daily on that because I needed so much help just getting around the house. Dylan would help lift me out of bed. He would help me go to the bathroom. I couldn't like pull my pants down on my own because I couldn't really move my arms. We had to hook my drains to like a necklace so that they wouldn't just hang down in the shower. He would have to like wash my body, and you know, just a lot of things that you take for granted that you don't really realize until you have major lack of movement and you're not able to do everything on your own. I think that was a really hard part for me, was having to rely 100% on my mom and Dylan to do things for me. I'm such an independent person that being like 100% dependent was a little bit frustrating, but Dylan has been super helpful all throughout this process. My mom's been amazing coming out here and helping, you know, when Dylan needs to work. But you know, it is hard on the husbands and it's hard on the spouses to know how to show up and how to be there for a cancer patient. There's so much that we go through emotionally, mentally, physically, on so many different levels that it does take a toll, and it is hard for them, and they just are doing their best to try to be there and support and be an advocate and help us heal in the best way that we possibly can. And so I'm really thankful for Dylan and all of his help, and you know, everything that he's helped get me through, and constantly lifting my spirits and reminding me, you know, to be positive and in those moments that I'm weak. And so that's been like a huge blessing in my life. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update and a little bit of insight into the other parts that go into, you know, a huge surgery like that. So we're so thankful for all of the support and all of the love that you guys constantly show to us. And, you know, it's made such a big difference in our lives. And we try and get this information out to you as soon as we can. But, you know, this is a constant current thing that we're going through. And my priority is healing and taking care of myself as best as I can. And sometimes filming comes second. So we just appreciate your patience in us getting these videos out and constantly showing support and love. And we love you. Thanks so much for being here.